My name is David Holtz, Senior Ranger, Sector Bravo 12, U.S. Border Patrol. I served 22 years on that line. You could say I knew every inch of it, from the soft bends of the Rio Grande to the blistering limestone flats of Webb County. We used to say the land could kill a man long before the cartels ever would. And it's true. You could bleed out on a cactus thorn, die from heat stroke 6 feet from water, or get swallowed by the arroyos in a flash flood. But those things, they were honest. You could measure them, expect them, prepare for them. What I'm about to tell you doesn't fit anywhere in the official field manuals. It's not in the training videos or hidden inside the redacted PDFs they send to higher brass. You won't hear it in morning briefings or whispered between veteran agents over truck hoods and stale coffee. But ask any man who's done time near mile marker 58. He'll tell you. Or he'll go quiet, which tells you more. It started in the winter of 19 December. Cold snap rolled in out of nowhere. Dry cold, the kind that creeps into your teeth. It was supposed to be a slow season. Traffic drops when the frost hits, and cartel movement shifts west during the holidays. But that year, we noticed something was off. Sector maps started flagging interrupted paths. Not the usual foot traffic, but short, direct movements across sections that were either inhospitable or closely watched. You'd have 2 miles of soft sand showing nothing, and then suddenly, a bent fence post, a collapsed section of wire, or a breach sensor going off with no visual confirmation. At first, we blamed it on tech failures. Batteries dying in the cold, feral hogs, kids messing around. Then came the first call from a civilian, rancher, 30 miles east of Laredo. Said he saw something tall move along his fence line. Didn't say a person, didn't say an animal either, just tall. He said it was too fast, too silent. Claimed he fired 2 shots, not warning shots either. Said the thing turned around, slowly, but didn't fall, didn't flinch, just stood there, watching. I was the one dispatched to follow up. I wish I hadn't gone alone. There were tracks all right, but they weren't right. The brush was broken in perfect intervals, like something heavy passed through but never stepped. No defined heel, no toe box, just pressure in the dirt. Heavy, patterned, almost calculated. That was the first night I noticed the silence. Normally, even in winter, you hear something out there. A barn owl, a coyote, even bugs chewing through the brush. But it was still, dead still, like the land itself was holding its breath. The higher-ups told me to drop it, that it was probably a person in ghillie, high on something. Told me to close the file. That was the first red flag, when someone with 2 pips on their collar tells a 22-year vet to forget about a breach that left no trail and rattled a grown man into stammering. It's not about protocol. It's about something else, about control. 3 nights later, Agent Morales went missing. I was on rotation when his call came through. Said he saw something move across the salt flats. Again, described as tall, moving fast, but not running. That's how they always said it. Not running, but moving fast. Like something skipping distance. He called it in, asked for backup. When they it was still running. Driver's door was wide open. His boots were in the floor well. Gun still holstered. All that was left in the driver's seat was moisture, sweat, pooled into the fabric like he'd been sitting still, and then just vanished. After that, we started getting hits on motion sensors we didn't even know existed. Turns out, there were deeper surveillance lines. Old Cold War tech, buried fiber cables, motion rings the feds installed without telling us. I only found out because someone left a debug tablet in the trailer, forgot to wipe it. That's when I saw the flagged anomaly logs. Over 40 pings in a 12-hour period. No source ID, no heat signatures. But each of them moved against the wind, always west to east, always toward populated zones. I started documenting things quietly, wrote down patterns, times, moon phases, even the radio skips, because that's another thing. Our comms started acting up, especially between midnight and 3 a.m. Channels would cross. You'd hear voices in other languages, sometimes whispering in something that wasn't even Spanish or English. Clicks, rhythmic pulses, then silence. One night, I heard my own voice echo back through the radio from a call I made 2 days earlier. Same tone, same words, just delayed, like something had recorded it and decided to play it back. Eventually, the locals stopped reporting. Not because it stopped happening, but because word got around. You speak up, you get a visit, not from agents, from men in suits who don't show badges and don't knock twice. I saw them once. Black Suburbans, untagged, no plates. Pulled Morales' wife in for questioning 2 days after his funeral. She came back pale, withdrawn, refused to talk to anyone after that, sold the house, and disappeared within a week. You might be thinking this sounds like paranoia. That's fine. I thought the same thing at first, until I started reviewing cam footage. Not just mine, but ones from sectors up and down the line. You had things walking through sensor fields without setting them off. Shadows passing behind patrol units without triggering any lights. One clip showed a figure standing at the base of a tower for over 42 minutes, unmoving, watching. But the agent inside the tower reported no visual. How do you miss that? You don't. Unless what you're seeing isn't meant to be seen. Whatever this is, it's not wandering. It's not animal instinct. It knows when we're watching. It knows how we respond. I saw it once, full on, or at least I think I did. It was during a moonless stretch. I was walking the ridge just north of marker 63, doing a sweep after a motion alert. There was fog, low but thick. I felt watched. I stopped, turned, and that's when I saw it. 7, maybe 8 feet tall, arms too long for the body, standing straight, too straight, head tilted sideways as if curious, no eyes that I could see, just the sense that it knew me. Then it was gone. No running, no wind, just gone. The department shut down our unit 6 weeks later, reassigned personnel, destroyed all the cam logs, denied the motion alerts ever existed. But I kept the tapes, some of them anyway. And if you're hearing this, it means you're willing to listen to what others won't even whisper. This wasn't a one-time encounter. This wasn't a local anomaly. This is movement, purposeful, controlled, and it's not coming from our side of the line. The breach isn't just geographical, it's something deeper, something old. And whatever it is, it's already here. Stay tuned for the next chapter. Subscribe to MindFuel to uncover every missing report, leaked cam file, and classified confession in this series. We don't just tell stories, we expose what others erase. I remember what they told us in the early days. If it moves like a runner, treat it like a runner. Simple, standard engagement protocols. You see a breach across the wire, you radio it in, pursue with caution, and if it escalates, use force. That's how it worked for years. Most of the time, it was cartel traffic, sometimes scared migrants, occasionally smugglers testing our reaction time. That's what we knew. That's what we trained for. But none of us, not one, trained for what came next. The first time a unit made contact, it was near Las Nurias, rough terrain, scrubland, cactus, mesquite, low visibility. The place eats radio signals alive. A rookie agent, barely 6 months in, saw something move behind the yucca trees. He thought it was a scout, maybe armed, so he followed protocol, called for backup, flanked from the east. When his partner arrived, they found him standing in place, rifle aimed, frozen. He said it looked like a man, but didn't move like one. And when it turned, it didn't turn its body, just its head, like it pivoted on a neck that was too long. They opened fire, both agents, multiple rounds. One of them emptied his full mag into its back. Center mass. No movement. No stagger. The thing just kept walking like the bullets meant nothing. Then, without a sound, it vanished. Not ran. Vanished. No blood, no trail. Just gone. When command reviewed the body cams, they wiped the footage. We weren't even given a reason. Just a direct order to cease field discussion. That's when the rumors started. Theories, half-laughed whispers about desert myths. But some of us, especially those who'd served long enough, we'd heard things before. Quiet stories from the tribal land rangers, old myths wrapped in warnings. Out here, legends aren't just stories. They're geography, warnings written into the rocks and winds. The Navajo to the northwest talk about skinwalkers, shapeshifters cloaked in the skin of the dead. South of us, among the Coahuiltecan and Lipan Apache, there's La Lechuza, a bruja that takes the form of a giant owl flying in silence, mimicking voices to lure you out. But one story came up more than any other, the Coyoteros. They weren't part of any official tribal record, not written down anyway. You only heard the name in passing, usually by someone older, usually in a lowered voice. They were described as tall, unnaturally tall, with skin that looked bleached by moonlight. White-gray, eyeless, silent, always silent. They didn't hunt like animals. They studied, watched, moved without disturbing the sand, without rustling the brush, and they always came in from the south. The name wasn't just a nod to coyotes, it was a warning. These weren't smugglers of people. These were smugglers of something else. I talked to an elder once, just north of Eagle Pass. He refused to go near the border past dusk. Said the line had been broken long ago, not the fence, but the skin of the earth, as he put it. He claimed the Coyoteros used to be kept at bay by something. Balance, he said. Sacred ground. But now that balance is gone, strip-mined, tracked over, replaced by floodlights and motion sensors, he said they weren't just returning, they were reclaiming. I didn't believe him at first. None of us did, until the dogs stopped barking. It was subtle at first. One night, the canines refused to leave their cages. Usually, they'd be begging to get out, snapping at the gates just to start the trail. But that night, they whimpered, laid flat, refused to look toward the desert. The next week, one went missing. Found its collar 5 miles east, no tracks, no drag marks, nothing. Then came the tunnel routes. We've always had to deal with cartel tunnels, dug fast, patched fast, used once and collapsed. But these weren't cartel. They didn't follow water lines or utility corridors. They went deeper, older. Some of them were already there. We just didn't know how deep they ran. One in particular, outside of Garcino, led down into a stone chamber. And I mean stone. Not concrete, not recent. Carved, etched, glyphs in patterns that didn't match anything local. I only saw the images once before DHS blocked off the site, but I remember the pattern. A spiral of elongated shapes, each with 2 slashes where eyes should be, just like the ones we'd started seeing on the perimeter cams. What we once thought were runners weren't moving like runners. They didn't avoid the checkpoints. They went through them, right past our towers, our floodlights, our vehicles. One agent caught us still on thermal. 7 figures walking single file across the flats. Uniform in height, tall, too tall, but no heat signatures. Like they weren't warm, like they weren't alive. That's when we knew this wasn't just a border threat. This wasn't about smuggling. This was about occupation. Quiet, patient, precise. They weren't coming in to flee. They were coming in to replace. And the government knew. We started noticing changes in our dispatch logs. Breaches redacted, names omitted, GPS coordinates scrubbed. In one case, a full day's patrol data went missing. The excuse? Server maintenance. But we never stored anything on internal servers. Everything we recorded was supposed to stay in our trucks, our towers. That data never should have left the grid. So what are they hiding? That's what I keep asking myself, because whatever this is, whatever they are, it's not new. It's old, and it's getting worse. The patterns are tightening. The sightings are moving north. The figures, what few we've seen, are getting bolder, closer, less afraid of our presence. They don't scatter. They observe. And we're starting to find things. Structures that weren't there the day before. Circles of stone. Patterns etched into the dirt. Small at first, then wider, like signals or warnings. Or maybe both. This isn't over. Not even close. It's escalating. Every time we think we've reached the limit of what's possible, the desert answers back with something stranger, smarter. And whatever crossed the border last month wasn't alone. We used to track them. Now they're tracking us. You've only just scratched the surface. Subscribe to MindFuel for the next full declassified chapter of this true horror from the border. They always said Sector 19 was a dead zone. Nothing moved there. No traffic. No activity. No need to patrol more than twice a week. Even the smugglers avoided it. Too much open ground. Too little cover. Or maybe they knew something we didn't. We didn't start paying attention until the motion alerts began. It started with 3:14 a.m., camera post 19C, pointed southeast over a dry washbed. A flash, just a flicker, like a figure passing too fast across frame. We chalked it up to wind, dust, maybe a low bird clipping the lens. But then it happened again. 2 nights later, same time, same camera, no wind, no birds, just the sensor lighting up, movement logged, but no image captured. That's when they flagged it. 3 consecutive pings, 12-hour intervals, all matching direction, east to west. Nothing caught visually, just the motion line. They sent Agent Kessler out to check it. Veteran. Quiet guy. Always followed protocol. He found something about half a mile from the camera post. At first, he thought it was roadkill, a javelina maybe, until he got closer. Then he realized it had been placed there. Deliberately. An animal, yes, but not one that died naturally. It was split, not torn, split, cut with precision. Head removed, drained of blood. But what really got to him was how the body was laid out. It wasn't dumped. It was arranged. Limbs aligned perfectly. Symmetrical, geometric, almost ritualistic. A triangle of stones around it, equal spacing between the hooves, and in the center, placed under the torso, was a clump of human hair. Kessler took a photo, sent it to command. 2 hours later, the image was deleted from the server. No explanation, just wiped. The rookie who saw it next didn't take photos. He never got the chance. His name was Matt Delgado. 23, fresh out of training, bright-eyed, eager, exactly the kind of guy you didn't want alone in that stretch. But we didn't know that yet. He volunteered to ride with Kessler that week, said he wanted to prove himself. I remember he called me the night before the incident, asked if I'd ever felt watched out there, not seen, felt. I said yes, but that the trick was to ignore it. Move forward, don't blink. He laughed, nervously, said, "Yeah, that's what Kessler said too." That was the last time I heard his voice. The next day, they went out to check the same motion line. Kessler stayed with the vehicle while Delgado took point with the FLIR unit, thermal. They had audio comms open. Kessler said he watched him walk up the ridge and vanish behind the cactus line. 30 seconds later, Delgado's voice came through, whispering, "I see something." He didn't elaborate, just said it again. "I see it." Then he started moving faster. You could hear the crunch of gravel under his boots, quick steps, breath picking up, then silence. Kessler ran after him, following the path. He found Delgado's thermal scope lying face down in the dirt. Still on, still recording. He called for backup. Sweep teams arrived within the hour. No blood, no prints, no sign of struggle. Just a long drag mark, one single mark through the dust that trailed off about 50 feet before ending abruptly, as if whatever took him lifted off the ground. We pulled the cam feed from post 19D. We hoped to at least see him running, maybe a blur, something, anything. The feed shows Delgado step into frame, stops, lifts the FLIR, tenses. Then, right before he opens his mouth, the feed cuts. Hard stop. Static. Like someone yanked the signal mid-frame. It returns 5 seconds later, but he's gone. They searched for 2 days. Dogs, drones, everything. Nothing. Then the reports went quiet. No follow-up, no press release. Delgado was listed as absent without leave. Just like that. No funeral, no closure. Kessler never returned to patrol. Transferred out to admin 6 days later. Won't speak to anyone, not even his wife. After that, the motion alert stopped. No pings, no flashes. Like whatever it was had gotten what it came for. Or maybe it just moved on. Maybe it was always watching, waiting for the right one, the right moment. But we knew then. We all knew. This wasn't a one-off incident. Sector 19 had been quiet, not because there was nothing there, but because something was keeping everything else away. Something old, something methodical, something that doesn't like being seen. And when it is seen, it removes the witness. There's a reason you won't hear this from Border Patrol HQ. There's a reason none of this is filed in the system. It's not about security clearance, it's about denial, control. Because if they admit it's real, they'd have to act. And the truth is, they don't know how. And now, it's spreading. The same motion patterns have started lighting up further west. New Mexico, California, even as far north as Colorado. And in every case, the cam footage ends the same way, with silence. MindFuel is your only line to the truth they're hiding. Subscribe now and turn on notifications. Chapter 2 is already unfolding. Next episode, The Screaming Tower, audio they tried to erase. The call came in on a Monday morning. Routine maintenance crew at Post 22 flagged a subsidence near the base of the wall. Looked like a cave-in. Small crater opened up along the gravel patrol road, no bigger than a manhole. Standard procedure. Check for smuggler tunnels, collapse if active, log, and report. But this one wasn't standard. Not even close. The opening wasn't reinforced. No boards, no rebar, no fresh dig marks. This wasn't cartel. This was something else. The hole descended at a perfect angle, almost architectural, 45 degrees down like it had been designed. Smooth walls, compacted earth, a shape too deliberate to be natural. They sent a 4-man team down to inspect. Ropes, lights, body cams. We listened to the feed in real time. The first thing they noticed was the temperature. Cold, like cave cold. Almost 10 degrees cooler than the surface. The second thing was the smell. One of them said it was like wet copper and old milk. Sour, rotting, but sharp. The kind of smell that triggers a gag before your brain identifies it. The kind that doesn't belong under sand. 17 feet in, they hit the first wall. Not a literal wall, just a section where the tunnel opened into a chamber, a natural pocket. That's where they found the bones. Small ones at first, rabbits, birds, some snakes. Then bigger, deer, javelina. None of them chewed, all stripped clean, arranged in concentric rings like someone or something had organized them with care. Dozens of skulls stacked at the center like a nest or a shrine. That's when they saw the markings, scratches, etched deep into the tunnel walls. At first, they looked like tally marks, random. But as they followed the line, they formed arcs, spirals, interlocking symbols. Not writing, not art, but deliberate. Like an old language trying to remember itself. No one recognized the pattern. Not tribal, not colonial, older. And then came the handprints, thousands of them, tiny, child-sized, pressed into the dirt ceiling and walls, as if an army of small, thin hands had passed through and left their mark. But they weren't impressions. They weren't pushing in. They were raised, formed outward, as if something beneath the wall was trying to reach through. The lead agent, Ramirez, said it out loud on comms. "This isn't a tunnel, it's a passage." That was his last clear transmission. 30 seconds later, the feed cut to static. One camera went black, then another. The last one, worn by a rear agent, captured a flicker just before going dark. Not movement, not shadow, just distortion, like the lens blinked, like it flinched. All four men made it out, but they weren't the same. No visible injuries, but quiet, pale. One of them refused to speak for 3 days. Another went home and sealed every mirror in his house with duct tape. DHS arrived the next morning. No paperwork, no flags. They brought 2 trucks, a generator, and 3 contractors. They didn't explore. They didn't document. They dropped 2 drums of liquid concrete into the hole and sealed it over. Within 4 hours, the crater was buried. The team was dispersed. The incident was never logged. The tunnel was gone. But that night, 63 miles north, motion sensors at Sector 27 lit up. Same time, same pattern, 5 sensors in a line, blinking from south to north, no visuals, no heat, just silent movement across barren ground. One of the towers picked up a blip, a brief thermal distortion moving at shoulder height across the flats. It didn't register as human, not animal, just presence. Then came the audio. Mic towers at 27C and 27E picked up sound, not wind, not static, a rhythm, a pulse, like breathing, but deeper, lower than human, like something massive exhaling just below the surface. One tech described it like this: "It didn't come through the mic, it came through my stomach." The signal cut. The team was told to wipe the drive. One refused. 2 days later, he quit the agency. No explanation, moved inland. No one's heard from him since. Whatever was in that tunnel didn't need it open to move. It didn't crawl. It didn't walk. It traveled. And once it had been disturbed, seen, it didn't stay hidden anymore. They thought sealing it would stop it. But you don't stop something that doesn't live by our rules. You don't close doors in a house that's already theirs. And now, it's moving faster. From tunnels to open land. From underneath to above ground. And it's not trying to hide anymore. It wants to be seen. It wants us to know. The border isn't holding it back. We're already inside it. You've heard the tapes. You've followed the silence. Subscribe to MindFuel to keep this story alive. Because the ones in charge, they want it buried, just like the tunnel. In the dark quiet of ranchland near Nogales, Arizona, where the nights stretch longer than most and the wind carries further than it should, a pattern began to form. A shape walking the fence line. Always at 3:07 a.m., always moving east to west, and always alone. The first to see it was Joel Medina, 3rd-generation rancher. No nonsense. His family's owned 220 acres of hard brush and brittle fence, just shy of the official border for over 60 years. He called it in as a trespasser. Said he grabbed his rifle, stepped onto his porch, and watched a man, tall, thin, maybe 6'5", walk the edge of his property. But what struck him wasn't the way it moved. It was how it didn't move, the air. Dust didn't rise. Grass didn't bend. Even when it stepped through dew, the moisture stayed untouched, like it passed through a world it didn't belong to. Joel aimed, called out, no response. The figure didn't stop, didn't turn. It simply continued. Slow, steady strides like it was searching for something it couldn't find. When Joel fired a warning shot, the figure paused mid-step, not in surprise, not in fear, but in recognition. Then it turned, not its body, just the head, and looked straight at him. Joel swears on his life. There was nothing there. No eyes, no mouth, not even skin, just a smooth, pale absence, a blank where a face should be. Joel didn't sleep for 2 nights. He didn't report it officially, but he told his neighbor, and his neighbor told us. By the end of that week, 5 separate ranchers described the same figure, same time, same direction, same face, or lack of one. We pulled the tower footage from the border cam at 48B, just 2 miles from Medina's land. It captured the moment. A blurred shape, bipedal, slow, almost distorted, moving parallel to the wall. But when we enhanced the frame, the features didn't resolve. They didn't pixelate. They vanished. Even at 4K digital zoom, the head remained perfectly smooth, not overexposed, not shadowed, just wrong, as if the camera itself refused to record it. The feed wasn't corrupted. The surrounding terrain was clear. The cacti behind it remained sharp. The fence post to its left was flawless. Only the figure, dead center, was incomplete. Agent Holloway was on rotation that night. He reviewed the cam feeds, logged the anomaly, but he added something in the margin, a note that wasn't meant for official records. It read, "Didn't trigger sensors, wind picked up, no movement flagged." It was like it wasn't fully here. He resigned 2 days later. No explanation, left his badge in an envelope, moved back east. But it wasn't just silence on the sensors. It was silence in everything. That entire stretch, Sector 48, went cold. No wildlife pings, no motion triggers, no chatter, as if nature itself was holding its breath. And then came the second sighting. This time, on the Mexican side, a smuggler cell, moving a group through dry arroyos. They hit a rest point near the fence. One man broke away to relieve himself. He never returned. When the others went looking, they found his flashlight on the ground, still on. His tracks stopped mid-stride, like he'd been lifted, not pulled, lifted. Next to the flashlight, scrawled into the sand, was a single symbol, a ring with 3 vertical lines, the same pattern etched into the wall of the tunnel from Chapter 2. Local police refused to investigate. Federal units declined jurisdiction. DHS sent a drone sweep and reported nothing unusual. But an agent who accessed the raw telemetry told us the drone glitched near that exact coordinate. 15 seconds of missing footage, not blank, not corrupted, just absent, as though the data had never existed. The only consistent detail in all accounts was the time, 3:07 a.m. It wasn't arbitrary, it was chosen. And each time the figure appeared, it walked the same line, retracing the same arc, like it was repeating a memory, or recreating one. But the worst came from an off-duty agent in El Paso. She wasn't even on rotation. She was at home. 3:09 a.m. Her porch camera recorded motion in her front yard, hundreds of miles from the last sighting. A man, tall and still, standing in silence, facing her door. Again, no face. She never opened the door. She didn't need to, because by the time she checked the feed and called local units, the camera had already overwritten the footage, automatically, as if something else had control of the system. She was gone by sunrise, left the city, left the job. And now, the sightings are no longer just at the border. They're moving north, higher towns, smaller communities, places without surveillance, places without witnesses, or at least without witnesses that stay long enough to talk. The man with no face doesn't run. doesn't speak, doesn't chase. He walks, always east to west, always at 3:07 a.m., as if time itself is bound to his rhythm. And wherever he passes, the world forgets to scream. MindFuel is how you stay ahead of the silence. Subscribe and activate alerts. You'll need them. The next chapter is already escaping containment. It was never supposed to surface. No paperwork, no insignias, no names. But footage always leaks, eventually. And what surfaced from the desert that night was never meant to be seen by the public, not even by the agencies that funded it. We received the file in a drop folder. No metadata. Just a 5-minute thermal recording with the file name DL_OP_RED_06. No context, no time code, but what it showed couldn't be explained away. The scene? A stretch of desert land west of Douglas, Arizona. No roads, no markers, just dust and space. A dozen men, gear unknown, unmarked, black-clad, spread out in formation. No radios, no overhead support. They moved like they'd trained for this. Night vision rigs, pulse rifles, 2 carried flamethrowers. Not standard issue. Old models, World War II design, retrofitted. The audio was stripped, completely scrubbed, but the thermal cam was intact. In the center of the frame, something moving, thin, upright, humanoid, but wrong. Its heat signature didn't match, flickering between hot and cold, pulsing in ways no body should. It didn't walk. It folded, limbs compressing inward, stretching out again, like its body couldn't decide what shape to keep. One of the operators raised his hand. Signal. No hesitation. They opened fire. Suppressor flashes blinked across the frame. The figure staggered, but didn't fall. Instead, it tilted. Not backwards, but sideways, its torso slipping at an impossible angle, like gravity had been misapplied. That's when they used the flame. Flamethrowers lit the dark like a second sun. The figure went up instantly, skin blistering into char within seconds. But it didn't collapse, it screamed. And what came out of it was not one voice. The body wailed in 2 distinct tones, one high, one low, not layered, separate. The high one sounded human, like a woman crying into a storm. The low wasn't human at all, deeper than lungs. It vibrated, like the ground itself was moaning beneath the frequency. The men stood frozen for 3 full seconds, longer than trained soldiers ever allow. Then one broke formation and fired again. Director, merciless. The body fell into ash, but the sound kept going for a full 7 seconds after the fire was gone. The footage ends there. No debrief, no names, just a flat line of heat over empty desert. We traced the leak. Didn't take long. It came from a facility 3 miles outside Fort Huachuca, off book, a black site buried under desert under NDA. We made contact with someone inside, a former handler. He didn't give his name, only a phrase. Operation Daggerlight wasn't cleanup. It was containment. When we pressed, he gave us a little more, voice shaking, breath clipped. He said, "They weren't trying to kill it. That was never the mission. The mission was to stop it from spreading. That thing wasn't alone. It was the one that got out first. We were late. It was already multiplying, mimicking, borrowing shapes it didn't understand. Yet." When asked what it was, he only paused, then said this: "What comes through the ground isn't from a cave. It's from below caves, below the crust. It's not life. It's a memory of something older than us, trying to wear our skin. Operation Daggerlight was the last step before evacuation. They won't admit that, but they were preparing to pull people out." We verified only one detail. DHS aircraft logs show 6 unmarked helicopters departing from Fort Huachuca that night, headed due north. Manifest redacted. Flight path blank. And 3 days later, border sensors across 4 sectors went offline. Same time, same minute. No EMP, no power loss, just absence, like the land went silent. Then, in Yuma, a civilian hiker found a scorch mark in the shape of a human body, 2 feet apart, arms at the side, still smoking. But no remains, just heat. And nearby, scratched into rock, the same 3 lines from before. A ring, vertical marks, the symbol of the passage. The man who leaked the footage disappeared 2 weeks later. His phone went dead. His address cleared. Online traces erased. Only 1 file remained in his drive, a handwritten scan with a single sentence. We woke it up. We thought fire would be enough. But fire only works on flesh. And this was older than flesh. Subscribe to MindFuel to stay ahead of the cover-ups. What you're hearing now, they're already rewriting it. Turn notifications on. The next chapter is not secure. There's a document, heavily redacted, dated 2 years ago. It was marked Internal, DHS Priority, Zone SES. The subject line reads, Escalation Protocols, Sector 9, 12, 17. That much we confirmed. But one phrase, buried deep in the body of the memo, was left untouched, almost as if someone wanted it to be found. It read, Recent events require non-standard suppression. Recommend reinforcement of non-civilian barriers. What are non-civilian barriers? Why are they being reinforced? Why only in specific sectors, remote ones, far from crossing hotspots? And most important, who exactly is being suppressed? The answer came from someone we weren't supposed to find, a man who hadn't worn his badge in 9 years. He served as a border agent across multiple sectors, including the ones flagged in the memo. We'll call him Erickson, and what he said reframed everything. He told us, the wall isn't what they say it is. Not all of it anyway. Some parts, the parts nobody talks about, aren't designed to keep people out. They're built to keep something in. According to Erickson, there are stretches of the wall that don't connect to any known road, that aren't monitored by drones, that no civilian cameras ever catch. These stretches are made of different material, reinforced alloys and layered metals not used anywhere else. At first, he thought they were just testing durability, but then he was reassigned to Sector 17. Sector 17 was quiet, too quiet. No crossings, no movement. Wildlife kept a wide berth, and yet the ground was always restless. Agents were given devices that resembled standard-issue walkies, but they didn't transmit. They listened, constantly humming low frequencies through a specialized earbud. Erickson said it was like wearing a tuning fork to the earth itself. One night, around 3:40 a.m., the hum shifted, grew deeper, more erratic. His device began to pulse, slow and deliberate. Then, the tremor. He described it as a breath, one long exhale from the dirt below. That same night, seismic sensors at post 17A registered movement beneath the wall. Not an earthquake, not a landslide. A single vertical displacement, as if something massive had pushed upward, then stopped. 2 engineers were flown in the next morning, no uniforms, no names. They installed what looked like metal pikes into the ground every 30 feet. No explanation was given. When asked, Erickson was told, "You're not guarding the wall, you're guarding the seal." Later, we tracked down a retired military contractor. We'll call him David. He was part of the original construction of these wall segments back in 2009, funded under a separate program labeled NS-RANGE. He thought he was just working foundations until his team received new specs, vibration sensors designed not for lateral movement, but vertical resonance. David remembered asking, "Why are we measuring tremors under isolated zones?" The reply came in one line from the lead engineer. Because it's not about what crosses over, it's about what tries to come through. When installation began, the crew was told to work at night only. Helicopters circled hourly. No press, no satellite coverage, and deep under the steel pylons, they were instructed to install sub-layer plates, some as deep as 60 feet. Each one was stamped with a serial code and a single word: Angkor. David recalled one night when their equipment malfunctioned. Tools went dead, generators failed. Then the soil beneath their rig began to rattle, not like shaking, like shivering. Something was moving directly underneath, large, slow, pulsing in a rhythm that felt intentional, measured, watching. He walked off the site that night. He was never called back. His final paycheck came with an NDA, but the sounds stayed with him. He said he still dreams of it sometimes. Metal groaning, dirt cracking, and a voice that wasn't in his ears, but in his chest, whispering in a tongue no one taught, yet he could almost understand. We've since confirmed that 3 of those sensor-equipped sectors have experienced repeated unexplained vibrations. No seismic events nearby, no drilling, and yet the pulses continue. They arrive every 11 days, exact intervals, always at night. And each time they return, they reach slightly closer to the surface. And then there's this, a document filed under the codename Lockjaw, a proposal to expand these reinforced wall zones further inland, up to 17 miles in certain cases. The reason? Quote, geological drift of anomalous origin moving perpendicular to border alignment. Surface breach risk elevated. None of this made the news. None of it reached the hearings. Because this isn't about immigration. It never was. This was never a wall. It was a lid, and whatever lies beneath it is pushing back. MindFuel doesn't broadcast the noise. We amplify the signal. Subscribe and activate alerts before that rhythm underground turns into a knock on your door. South of Organ Pipe Cactus National Monument, tucked between the arroyos and the dry washes, there are paths so old they don't show on satellite. Foot trails carved by heat and desperation. Migrants move through these zones under moonlight, trying to avoid patrols and worse. But lately, they've been avoiding something else. We were given coordinates to one such location. No name, just a grid point. A former camp, the message said. It wasn't a campsite, not really. No fire pit, no clothes, just remnants. Crumpled water bottles, a child's sandal, and something smeared across a sheet of tarp, clear, gelatinous, and still wet. The viscous fluid coated everything. Thick strings of it clung to cactus needles and rock surfaces. One border medic, on site, said it had a consistency between mucus and tree sap, only colder. It shimmered faintly when exposed to heat, like it didn't belong in sunlight. We collected samples. 3 separate labs ran the tests. All 3 returned the same base result: non-human origin, complex protein chains, no matches in the CDC pathogen database, no matches in animal biomes. One virologist noted that its structure was designed to survive. Resistant to bleach, UV, even high alkaline exposure. The fluid contained spores, dormant but viable. They didn't behave like any known mold or fungus. They responded to frequency. Within 24 hours, 2 of the lab techs who handled the fluid reported burning in the lungs, followed by nosebleeds. Their tests came back negative for every known respiratory virus. One of them coughed up something small, translucent, like an insect casing, but too symmetrical. It dissolved in saline before it could be photographed. Then came the wildlife officer, a contract biologist stationed near Cabeza Prieta. She'd been tracking large predator patterns along the migration corridors: coyotes, mountain lions, the occasional jaguar. but her motion cams started picking up something different. Claw marks, long ones, always in sets of 3. Deep. Too uniform to be random. Carved into saguaros, old gas drums, abandoned fences. She followed one trail back to a ridge, found what she thought were coyote dens, shallow, oval depressions. But the earth inside was disturbed, deliberately, dug in patterns, almost circular. The deeper she looked, the more she noticed the same gelatinous film lining the edge of the holes. Then came the prints, not pawed, not hoofed, more like split digits. 3 toes, long, bone-thin, drag lines behind them as if whatever walked pulled something heavy. We showed her footage from the drone survey conducted the previous month over Sector 12. Her face changed. She said she'd seen something like it before, but never from above. That drone was running a routine scan, looking for heat signatures, but it picked up a mass under the sand, rounded, cool on the outside, warm in the center. At first, analysts assumed it was a buried water tank. Then the shape shifted. A second heat source emerged next to it, smaller, pulsing faintly. Before the drone could lower altitude, the feed pixelated, and something crawled out from the sand. No eyes, no pigment. Thin limbs bent the wrong direction. It moved awkwardly, but fast, almost instinctive. The drone's camera tried to refocus, but by the time it did, the thing had already vanished into the brush. What remained was a shallow pit, lined with that same gelatinous residue, and at its center, a pod. It wasn't a seed, not a nest. It was a holding chamber, organic, open at the top, smooth around the edges, large enough to hold something the size of a dog. Inside it? Nothing. Just trace protein dust and something else. Fragments of teeth, human molars, shattered, like they'd been spat out. The wildlife officer's final words stuck with us. She didn't speak like a scientist. She spoke like someone who'd accepted something fundamental had changed. These aren't animals, she said. They're seeding. They're not hunting. They're planting something, and what's growing wasn't meant for this world's rhythm. As of today, 5 other camps have been discovered abandoned in similar conditions. No bodies, no clear trails, but all the same elements. The claw marks, the fluid, and always those depressions in the sand. These aren't random sites. They're mapped along a pattern, a line that curves inward, deeper toward a central point in the desert, a place we haven't reached yet, but something already has. You're watching MindFuel, the only channel digging beneath the official story. Subscribe and activate alerts. The next transmission is already being buried. The terrain southeast of Lukeville, Arizona is punishing, wind-scoured, sun-bleached. But in the shadow of Babokivari Peak, the landscape gives way to a narrow canyon, one that doesn't appear on government survey maps. It's only visible during certain times of day, when the sun slips low enough to cut a shadow between the rocks. Border Patrol records show the canyon was entered just once on official file by an agent named R. Delgado, who veered off route after tracking what he believed were lost migrants. His body cam activated for 22 minutes. What it captured was never released to the public, but a portion of that footage was recovered, leaked by someone who believed the public had a right to see what was found. Delgado enters the canyon alone. He calls out, Spanish first, then English. The echoes are thin, swallowed almost immediately. At roughly the 7-minute mark, he lowers the camera, breathing hard. His voice softens. He says one line, barely above a whisper. That wall's not natural. The camera pans up. A surface, flat, vertical, blackened with age. Not concrete, not adobe, stone, chiseled, weathered, but still intact. Lining it from edge to edge are hundreds of symbols. Spirals, lines crossing other lines, triangular teeth, inverted figures, human shapes, distorted, bowed inward, holding something above them. Each image dug deeply into the rock with tools older than steel. Symbols no one taught in school. This wasn't graffiti. It wasn't art. It was a message. When Delgado reached out to touch the wall, something happened. The footage begins to shimmer, not glitch, bend. Like the signal itself struggled to transmit. Static bursts, then silence. Delgado drops the camera. The last frame shows his boots stepping backward, then a long pause. And finally, he runs. He doesn't file a report. He goes home and resigns the following week. 2 years later, we tracked him down. He wouldn't appear on camera, but he agreed to tell us what he remembered. What he said didn't sound like Border Patrol training. It sounded like a warning. It wasn't just the wall, he said. It was the air. It felt like it was watching me, like the rocks remembered me, and the carvings. They weren't just drawings, they were instructions, or maybe locks. In search of answers, we brought high-resolution scans of the wall to a tribal historian from the Tohono O'odham Nation. She didn't flinch when she saw them. In fact, she said her grandfather had once described carvings just like these, deep in the mountains, shown only to elders during seasonal transitions. We asked her what the figures meant, what the bent bodies and the jagged symbols were trying to say. She didn't hesitate. "You call them monsters," she said. "We call them the keepers of the line. They don't come from here. They walk between places beneath us or behind us. They don't build, they don't sleep, and they hate walls." We asked her why. She said, because walls mark boundaries. And they don't believe in boundaries. They believe in cycles, migration, entry, exit. In their world, things must always move. Walls stop movement. So when a wall rises, they send something through it, to crack it, to open it again. She pointed to a particular symbol, an eye with no pupil, surrounded by clawed hands. She told us it meant watcher who waits beneath, a guardian, or perhaps a prisoner. It appears every 10 carvings, always at the bottom, always watching. Then she asked a question we weren't prepared for. "Have you been hearing them yet? The ones inside the ground?" We asked what she meant. She said, "They whisper before they wake. If you hear them in your dreams, don't answer, don't speak back. They know the sound of your voice." We tried to verify the location of the wall. We returned to the canyon, but it was gone, or hidden. The GPS coordinates led us to a flat, featureless ridge. No path, no cut, no stone wall, just wind and silence. But in the sand nearby, we found a single carving, shallow, recently etched, the same inverted figure with its head bowed, holding something high above its head, something shaped like a door. MindFuel investigates what others label myth, but we follow what's carved in stone. Subscribe, enable alerts, and join us for the next discovery they'll say is just a story, until it isn't. At 0341 hours, Drone 27A, operating under routine infrared sweep, was surveying an unincorporated zone 4 miles west of El Indio, Texas. Thermal sensors had flagged anomalous heat clusters in the brush earlier that week, prompting deeper scans. But what the drone found that morning wasn't heat. It was stillness. A flat field, salt brush, low desert mesquite. And in the middle, bodies. Not one, not two, 17, scattered across a 100-yard radius. Every one of them positioned face down, limbs splayed outward, heads tilted left. No shoes, no clothes, no skin. But the organs remained. No blood pooled, no puncture wounds visible, just exposed musculature, tendons, nerves, as if the epidermis had been removed with precision, not ripped, not burned, lifted. The drone hovered at 120 feet. Optical zoom revealed no drag marks, no vehicle tracks, no footprints. The bodies looked as though they had fallen from the sky, but even that didn't explain the placement. Too symmetrical, too organized, a perimeter with a hollow center, as if something had stood in the middle and watched. Border Patrol dispatch was notified. A recovery team was mobilized. Estimated arrival, 43 minutes. But 18 minutes into drone surveillance, audio from an active body cam attached to Agent H. Chavez en route to the site picked up something that was never explained in the final report. At timestamp 4:09:13, a whisper. Still breathing. Not over comms, not background noise. Close. Very close. As if spoken just behind the mic, inside the cab of the patrol vehicle. Agent Chavez responds, but not to the voice. He doesn't hear it, but we do. The whisper repeats itself, softer this time, like air being pushed through a tunnel that shouldn't be there. Still. Breathing. Chavez reaches the field at 04:26. His dash cam activates as the headlights sweep the terrain. In that single arc of light, the field is empty. No bodies, no blood, not even indentations in the soil. The drone confirms it. What it had recorded is gone. Same coordinates, same angle, nothing. Chavez exits his vehicle, his voice on radio. "I think dispatch got it wrong. There's no one here." He walks forward. 12 steps in. His boot catches something soft. He looks down. A tooth. Human. Molars and incisors, still rooted in jawbone. 2 minutes later, he finds more, scattered, forming a trail leading away from the supposed drop zone and into the dry riverbed. The drone, still recording, pans outward. The scrubland flickers, not visually, thermally. Heat blooms begin to appear, one by one, beneath the surface, faint, then gone, like something sensing observation, withdrawing. By the time backup arrives, Chavez has already returned to his vehicle. His face is pale. He doesn't speak. He doesn't respond to questions. But in his hand, he holds something, a scrap of skin, folded over, not decayed, fresh. Its outer layer tattooed with a faint spiral, the same spiral found on the petroglyph wall 2 chapters ago. Chavez leaves the force 3 days later. The official report lists a false visual match, misidentified objects, dried bedding mistaken for human remains. Case closed. But the leaked drone footage tells a different story, and so does the time-stamped cam. Someone, or something, was there. 17 someones. Stripped, but intact. And someone else, watching. And what's worse, they didn't die. The whisper said it. The drone confirmed it. They were still breathing. You're watching MindFuel, where the footage is real and the denials are edited. Subscribe. They don't want you following the full thread. We already know what's next. Border agents are trained to deal with extremes: heat, isolation, unpredictable encounters with armed smugglers, desert dehydration. But what began happening across sectors 9 through 21 wasn't procedural. It wasn't environmental. It was neurological. It started with memory gaps, patrol logs showing route durations that didn't match GPS timestamps, agents claiming they were gone for 40 minutes, but dash cam footage confirming they were missing for 3 hours. Vehicles found idling, doors open, radios hissing with no one inside. Then came the nosebleeds. Internal reports show 7 separate instances within 2 days, all from different stations, all in good health. Agents returning from night patrols with blood running from their nostrils, sometimes both ears, confused, eyes dilated. Medical evaluations noted a bursting pressure behind the eyes and ears, similar to rapid altitude sickness, but with no change in elevation. That's when hallucinations began. One female officer reported seeing movement in her rearview mirror for 3 consecutive nights, not behind the vehicle, inside it. When she turned to check, no one was there, but she began to recognize a shape each time. Tall, thin, head tilted toward her like it was listening. She said the first time, it was fog. The second time, reflection. The third time, shadow. But the shape never changed, just its density. An anonymous tip later matched her story. Another agent, different sector, used the exact same phrase. It doesn't cross. It doesn't walk. It phases. He said, "We keep looking for tracks, prints. But that's not how it gets in. It doesn't climb the fence. It comes through it." Command tried to rotate the agents out. Psychological leave, mandatory rest periods. But it only slowed the reports, didn't stop them. If anything, the symptoms followed them home. Dreams of long corridors underground, dreams of standing still while their reflection moved, nosebleeds in the shower, static when the lights were off. And then, the final call. At 2:12 a.m., radio channel BP-19 picks up a garbled transmission. Patrol Unit Delta 4 had checked in from Sector 11. Normal sweep, 2 agents inside, routine. Then the signal cuts in, static, followed by breathing, fast. One agent speaks. "Do you see it? Look right in front." Then silence. Another voice, more frantic. "It's inside the vehicle. It's not." Then the line crackles, metal groaning, a choking sound. Final words, "Oh God," nothing but 2 drops of blood on the steering wheel, and a single mark etched on the passenger window. A spiral. And below it, fogged into the glass from the inside, a handprint. Long fingers, too long, no prints. Whatever they thought they were tracking out there, it was never on the outside. It was already in. You're watching MindFuel, where the silence between transmissions tells you more than the words ever could. Subscribe and stay with us. The next file we've recovered, you'll hear it for yourself. At 01:59:23, camera drone 47K, operated under the Black River Reclamation Project, breached restricted altitude by mistake. The feed was immediately flagged, then scrubbed, but the raw satellite uplink was intercepted by one of our sources before the file was overwritten. This is that footage. The terrain is empty. Night vision switches to infrared. Nothing, then movement. One figure, walking. First visible at 800 yards, unnatural gait. Long legs, knees inverted. Elbows bending the wrong direction, limbs too long for any primate, but moving like it had worn our shape before. It stops, lifts its head, slowly turns to face the drone. And that's when we see it clearly for the first time. Its mouth is sewn shut, not with string, with metal, crimped steel wiring threaded through flesh in a grid pattern, but the eyes, it's watching, not with curiosity, with recognition. Like it remembers the thing behind the camera, like it's seen this before, like it's waiting. The drone begins to shake, no wind, no external force. The signal cuts in and out. Just before the blackout, one final image resolves. A close-up of its chest. There, embedded into its skin, not attached, not hanging, embedded in the sternum, a set of U.S. military dog tags. The name on them, Marshall, TR. That name matches a special reconnaissance officer reported MIA 4 years earlier in Operation Daggerlight. His body was never recovered. The final voice in this episode comes from Sergeant David Kuhn, one of the last surviving witnesses from Operation Daggerlight. His debrief was classified, but one sentence, recorded on analog tape, was left behind after his death. "We never secured the border. We opened something, and it walked through." Since the footage aired in private channels, the Department of Homeland Security has refused to comment. Border sectors 9 through 19 have had increased patrols, but no public explanation. Several officials involved in the response have have since resigned or disappeared from federal records. One thing is now clear. What's crossing the line isn't interested in fences, or checkpoints, or our rules of biology. They don't sneak in. They phase, they listen, and some have already been invited. The question now is no longer, how do we stop them? It's, how long have they been here? You've been watching MindFuel, where blacked-out files, silent screams, and buried truths come to light. Subscribe now. We're just getting started. And next time, we'll take you to the town that doesn't appear on maps, because what lives there never left. They walked through the border and never walked back out. They sent someone new. They always do. That's how this place works. One disappears, another arrives, the paperwork clears, the logs reset, and the tower waits. But what Ranger Colton Hayes stepped into wasn't just a post left empty. It was a position already occupied. Colton wasn't briefed. No mention of Harper, no incident history, just coordinates, supplies, and a message. Don't question the silence. Maintain radio protocol. The forest self-regulates. That was it. But within 4 hours of his arrival at Tower 9, the forest broke that silence and spoke first. At 10:47 p.m., he heard his own name whispered over the emergency frequency. He hadn't transmitted, hadn't powered the uplink. And yet, there it was. Colton, let me in. The voice wasn't his, but it knew how he thought. It asked questions before he formed them. It laughed at memories he never spoke aloud. And that first night, when he lay in bed staring at the ceiling, the floorboards creaked with footsteps that matched his own breathing. One breath in, one step, one breath out, one step. It didn't matter if he held his breath. The footsteps kept going. What Colton didn't know, and none of them ever know, was that you don't inherit the tower. You inherit the memory of what it saw, and memory is dangerous out there because sometimes it walks. This is MindFuel. We bring you back to the places they told you to forget. We listen to the towers. We decode the static. Subscribe now. Because Evan Harper's story didn't end. It just found a new voice.